Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the video. My name's Jeremy Haynes. We're going through a case study today of how we turned a little over 1.8 million in ad spend to just shy of $22 million in total revenue in about 19 months. And then this company went on to exit for a majority stake in their business for about $40 million. We're going through all the advertising best practices, some funnel best practices, just some general best practices of getting to $1 million months, because that's all we talk about on this channel. If you're new here, welcome in. Again, my name's Jeremy Haynes, and all we do here is take the 40 different deals. I'm about to get number 41 and 42, by the way, but currently 40 different deals for the lessons that have gotten those businesses to their $1 million months. We hand them down to you inside of these YouTube videos. If you're already a subscriber, welcome back. You already know the deal. Got another banger for you here today. Quick disclaimer, this is not an income claim. You have an exceptionally low probability to ever hit $10 million a year. According to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, it is 0.1% for you to ever hit numbers like that, let alone get to the big $1 million months. So if you are in any way, shape, or form taking this as an income claim, go fuck yourself. You have a very low probability to ever achieve these kind of things. However, knowing the lessons of how to get there and what the people who got there and maintained being there is really good for what it can do to your business for the lessons, right? Okay, so let's dive in. First of all, 1.8 million ad spend to about $22 million in revenue is fucking sick. It was an awesome account. I'm gonna explain initially the advertising strategy followed by the funnel strategy. But first, a quick backstory. So back in the day, I'm speaking at one of my clients, Garrett J. White. He does a lot of revenue, but since I said his name, I won't say the amount. Garrett's probably one of my favorite clients that I've ever had. And Garrett invited me to speak at one of his masterminds at one of his past offices in Dana Point, California. Garrett's now down here in good old Miami, Florida. Garrett, welcome in the instance that you're ever watching this. Okay, anyway, I digress. Garrett invited me to talk in a mastermind. So I get up and I start talking to them about content advertising strategies and just some of the best practices that we were at the time exploiting on Garrett's account. Now, I meet a guy there, and this guy that I meet, so I can be as detailed as I can in this video for you here today, not saying his name out of respect so I can talk through the numbers and whatnot. What you'll learn is if you ever get a chance to play in the big leagues or make big money, your clients will absolutely fucking hate when you air them out and talk openly about all their numbers, strategies, what works, what didn't work. So I have to be relatively anonymous when I make these kind of videos. So I meet this guy. At the time, he's doing about 120K a month, okay? And he shows me this funnel that he has. And if you've watched anything on my channel before, you'll know that I'm a big fan now of this specific funnel type. But at the time, I really wasn't. I mean, when I saw this guy's funnel, I was like, well, dude, no shit, you're only making 120K a month. Like, look at your funnel. It had a headline, a VSL, and an application on Typeform. And I was like, what is this? Like, where's everything else that should be on the page? This is a call funnel, right? Like, it should have testimonials and like an about who you are section or the company and, maybe some other sections. And he was like, oh, dude, I mean, we're fucking printing with this thing. Like, we just launched it. We spent roughly 20K. It was a little bit shy of that. And we made this 120K. So, it's working pretty well. And I was like, hey man, I don't want to be right. I just want to make money, okay? So at the end of the day, when the guy says something like that, it made sense to me and I didn't have any discrepancies from that point forward. And as a matter of fact, I started talking to him about scaling. Like anybody who has initially launched something, you usually end up maxing out your closers and then struggling to go and recruit more closers. This wasn't that kind of guy. This was one of my favorite types of people. A person who's about the action, who's willing to take risks, who's willing to put their balls on the table and get more results. So I asked him, I'm like, what's currently holding it back? He goes, dude, nothing. He's like, I'm hiring more closers. I want to spend more money. He's like, honestly, like, you want to come in and you want to take it over? Now, generally, we don't ever really take on anybody in an agency role that is at that level of revenue. However, I really like this guy, and Garrett really vouched for him as a person. I liked his offer too. His offer was tremendous. I'm always a big fan of when I can sell stuff that actually helps the world, makes me feel like I'm a part of like a mission-driven business. I generally see a lot more performance out of myself beyond just the monetary incentives that I receive in a deal. So anyway, this kind of offer also aligned to that. So I was like, hey man, fuck it, we'll give it a shot. I told him though, I was like, look, this is gonna kind of stretch you thin. One of the big reasons we don't take people on in those revenue ranges is because we typically have somebody spend about 50K in ad spend in the first 30 days. And in addition to that, they spend about 15 to 20K on us as a marketing agency, in addition to a rev share. So his upfront costs were gonna be all the way upwards of like $65,000 to $70,000, which would be more than half, of the total net revenue that the guy's pulling in. However, he had a little bit of cash reserves. This guy wasn't new to business. This was just a new offer that he had. So he was sitting on some cash. He was willing to take that risk. And so we come in and we scaled that specific funnel up. I'm gonna label this as the V1 version of the funnel because we ended up implementing a strategy accidentally that we later called horizontal funnel scaling, okay? So we come in and we just start running ads to this. We don't do any of our content marketing strategies initially because the ROAS is so great, okay? And for this specific offer type, we hadn't had somebody in this niche before. And this was a combination of kind of a done-for-you info info product slash like community with coaches involved. It was an offer that was helping people overcome an addiction. Okay, and it was about a $7,500 price point at the time when we first got involved with it. Cost per call, we would run a call funnel to be clear. So it looked like that. It would go over to a scheduler page, and then on that scheduler page, they would book a call, and then the people who were qualified, of course, would go to a confirmation page. And we would specifically optimize around the people who hit the confirmation page with the standard event of schedule, okay? So that would be what we used. And it was, again, just straight up direct response ads. No content marketing strategies, like nothing too crazy. We always defer to the simplest things that we could do first. And when something exposes itself that we need to step in and do something greater than the simplest thing, will obviously result to that and do it. However, we always want to essentially reduce the friction as much as possible when we first get into a deal, okay? So anyway, this was V1 of the funnel, and this thing was fucking printing. We got this specific version of the funnel up to about 600K a month before we started to run split tests against it. We were consistently, and this is a really important thing to understand, we're consistently holding anywhere from like a 10-to-1 to all the way up to a 20-to-1 ROAS. This specific client, all right, one of my favorite things about this deal was this guy knew one of the best things that you can know about running any kind of business, which is there's front-end revenue and then there's back-end revenue, okay? Surprisingly, most people get really caught up on just one or the other, okay? If you have a front-end revenue-oriented business, it's generally a transactional number. In some instances, it's a recurring number that you're gonna acquire a customer for, and then you profit on them additionally every month that goes on, as long as you retain them. And you'll judge yourself mainly based on the profitability of the front end. Some businesses or some strategies, like low ticket to high ticket as an example, will acquire customers for as close to break even or ideally profitable that they can be. And then obviously the whole strategy revolves around the back end and upselling as many people as possible on as many things as possible to make all the profit in the business, and ideally in a tight time frame. So here's the thing with this specific business, okay? The front end offer was a $7,500 price point, okay? This was a one-time cost. There was no recurring component to it. They had a payment plan option. However, the salespeople fucking hated selling it, as any business should. They would always push people to PIF. The back end, okay? The back end, they had all kinds of upsells. They had a $10,000 offer. They had a $25,000 offer. They had a $50,000 offer. And then they had a big dog offer that was $250,000, okay? And a lot of these back end offers just involved varying degrees of additional involvement, from more coaching deals. As an example, if you came through the front end $7,500 one-time offer, you would only have a variable amount of coaching that was offered to you. If you wanted more coaching and more involvement, you might upsell to one of the 10K or the 25K packages as an example. This guy also had masterminds and like in-person events, and these things were also ranging from as low as about 10K all the way up to 50K, give or take which specific mastermind it was. This guy had a completely different business that was already at $1 million a month. So again, he was very well versed in business and was just a great guy to learn from beyond what he was technically selling you on the front end. So once you got your shit together on the front end with overcoming the addiction related issue, on the back end, you would want to get your shit together again and really start scaling up. And like I said, this guy who ran this specific business, he did a tremendous job at just being a good business person. So he had a lot of different offers that involved, just simply put, one-on-one coaching, additional coaching offers from his coaches that he had on staff, masterminds, events, things like this. So the revenue on the front end was always really strong. Like we'd average at the lowest and like the highest cost per call months where everything was really inflated, anywhere as low as like 5-to-1 or 8-to-1. Most months though would consistently trend at like an 8-to-1 all the way up to like a 15-to-1. And obviously it would vary, okay? This is one of the most important things to understand about this specific deal and almost all deals. You rarely just have like a static fucking ROAS. That's one thing that people get really caught up on when they're scaling aggressively, is they think that the number is just gonna stay static. They think all their KPIs are just gonna stay static. I consistently talk about this lesson, which is good, great, and intolerable, okay? These specific things are variable KPI numbers, which for every statistic you have in your funnel, you have to have a range of what you consider good, great, and it just goes above or goes below a certain threshold and it becomes intolerable and it breaks everything. Obviously, when you financially model everything out in your funnel, when you do math, you'll realize that, certain statistics can by themselves have good, great, and intolerable ranges, but you also, when you combine every statistic together for how it influences everything in your process, if certain statistics all at the same time in a very minor way go against the statistical trend you want them to otherwise go, that alone can fuck you and ruin the statistic and make everything intolerable at once. months. This specific client, like I said, they'd have great windows where we were averaging really strong ROAS. They'd have good windows. They never really reached a threshold where things became intolerable, okay? This specific client did such a phenomenal job. Back to the story though. We get to about 600K a month and we're like, hey, we haven't really ever varied this specific funnel combination. Let's try something else. Like, let's see what else that we can do. So we started coming up with this concept that we called horizontal funnel scaling. So in V2 of the funnel, we did something really simple. We didn't change anything. We just added an additional section. So we had the VSL, we had the application, and then below that, we just added a little section that had a bunch of testimonials, okay? And the initial intention was to split test this thing. And it was the same funnel for the follow-up, where we then had the scheduler, we then had the confirmation page for the qualified people, etc. Okay? And anybody that was unqualified from this point forward, we also incorporated a drop sell. So the unqualified people, disqualified DQ, those people would go to a drop sell, which was an offer that was on the page itself to buy. Okay, to be clear, in V2 of the funnel, the intention was to see if we can get a better cost per call and obviously try to grow the ROAS even more, okay? In this V2 of the funnel, the most important thing to understand is one of the others was meant to be shut off. So as soon as one of the V1 or V2 started to win, we would ideally just cut off the loser and then scale the winner. Well, this was specifically during the COVID era, and I had made a mistake that was technically a good choice. I let it ride for all the way up to like 3 full weeks, okay? So I ended up going back into the ad account, and at first I was kind of like, oh, fuck, like I forgot to shut off one of the tests. But when we looked at it, like both tests were pretty much neck and neck. Like if we averaged, give or take the month, like $100 to maybe like $150 cost per qualified call. I mean, as an example, like if V1 was at 130 during this specific time frame I looked at it, V1 or V2, whichever other one I was looking at, might have been like $10 greater. You get what I'm saying? They were neck and neck, and all it really did was just result in a higher call volume. So at that point, I remember I get onto a team call and I was like, hey guys, like, you know, my apologies, I actually kind of fucked up. I didn't shut off one or the other and then go all in on the winner. I just kind of let both ride. And I actually think this is a great thing because it further divests our risk of being isolated to one specific version of the funnel. And in addition to that, it gets us to a point where we have more funnels that we can scale, more campaigns we can scale. I think we should do this intentionally from this point forward with as many variations of it as we can think of. So that's what we chose to do. So we started doing this thing, we called it horizontal funnel scaling. We ended up having a V3, a V4, a V5. I think we got all the way up to like 7 variations of this funnel. So for V3, we had the same headline, but we changed the VSL. So in V3, we officially had a VSL 2.0, and then we went back to the original variation, which was just headline, VSL, application. Same flow for the follow-up, scheduler, confirmation, drop sell for the unqualified people. By the way, just on a side note, we didn't give a fuck about the drop sell, okay? The drop sell was just something to help liquidate the ad spend for the people that were coming through that were unqualified, but we never really ever tried to like optimize the drop sell at all. It just didn't take any attention. One big mistake that I see a lot of businesses make that we mentor, coach, consult, or sometimes work with hands-on is they give way too much of a fuck about the things that aren't actually what are intended to make them the most money. And it ends up sidetracking the attention of the key players in the business that are otherwise intended to drive big results, focusing on the things that actually make the most money. It just sidetracks everybody, okay? I'm not saying that, yeah, you don't have a couple hours extra a week to be able to put towards the drop sell optimization, but we just did it, okay? We didn't really give a fuck about it. It would occasionally sell on its own. It would occasionally liquidate some ad spend, but we were fucking printing money anyway. So again, didn't really take a lot of attention. Chadvertising, okay? So anyway, in V3, like I said, we just did the original V1 funnel, but with a new VSL, okay? And guess what? The same fucking outcome occurred. This one was like plus or minus $10 to $15 cost per call beyond what V1 and V2 were doing, but yet we got another campaign that we were able to get more spend off on. So at this point, we get the business up to $1 million months. We're officially cracking the big $1 million months. Everybody's happy. However, the mission is not even remotely close to accomplished. At this point, like I said, we're obviously deeply focused on scaling up. One of my favorite things to point out on this deal, okay, which I've referenced throughout other videos on my channel when I talk about $1 million a month earners and their mindset, like this specific deal was just a whole set of best practices for what to do, okay? This specific guy who ran this thing was so fucking tapped in. He was arguably my most annoying client I've ever had, but in a way that I actually appreciated rather than getting mad about. Some clients who make very little money, who are just starting off, they'll be absolutely really up your ass because they're just afraid of spending money. They're not up your ass in an accountability way. They're up your ass in like a fear-oriented way, okay? This guy would contact me multiple times a day. Like in the mornings, he would tell me if the calendars are loaded up all the way or not. He would tell me about the quality as to the qualified versus unqualified ratio. He would tell me about how the calls are going throughout the day. He would even go into the ad account himself and look at the cost per qualified calls, notice minor fluctuations in them, proactively ask me if ad fatigue is occurring and if he needed to film new videos to overcome it. He would be dialed into the point where when a specific holiday was coming up or, you know, something that could have gotten the people that we were selling to distracted, he would just proactively go film some stuff that was contextual for that time frame to ensure that people still came through the funnel and paid attention. Daily sales training with the sales team, okay? Just up everybody's ass that had to do with revenue in order to continue pushing this thing up. I can't even remember a down month that this company had along the way of growing this thing. He was dialed the fuck in, okay? And like I said, when I articulated as like there was this annoying level of follow-up, this was my highest touch deal I had done to date in terms of the amount of times per day that I would have to have conversations with a client. And we had plenty of deals that were similar to this in terms of revenue numbers that would just have so fewer touch points. You know, as an example, like weekly calls and occasional messages in a platform like Slack, Telegram, iMessage, whatever with the team and the, you know, people I report to. My point being, this guy gave so much of a fuck, okay, about scaling this thing up and growing it and printing money. And this is one of those deals that just gives you a huge comparison bias against every other deal I've subsequently done since. Most people just don't take it that seriously, okay? What this guy specifically understood is even if things were going right, okay, or if things to him were going wrong, but he could get confirmation from me that, hey, you just need to chill out, that was still good for him. And in other instances when things were going wrong and he wanted to fix it, that's exactly what he would choose to do. He would just attempt to improve anything that he could every single day, multiple times a day, okay? Which ultimately I grew to appreciate, respect, and acknowledge to help get this thing to the level of ROAS that it was at, to maintain the level of ROAS that it was at, both at the bottom and as it scaled the fuck up. And then eventually to the point where he exited the business. He technically had to stay in the business, to be fair, when he sold it to a PE firm for about 40 mil for a majority stake in revenue. But still, I mean, the point I'm attempting to make is very simple. This guy was dialed the fuck in, okay? So anyway, back to my point. In terms of funnel strategy, we ended up with a total of about 7 of these funnels, and all of them were spread out. Like we had a few of them that would be in the main account. We had a few of them that were in like all these side accounts and backup business managers. That way we diversified spend across everything. That way we had risk mitigation across everything. This guy had so many different like credit cards and like huge credit lines available, and we were just printing money. I can't stress that enough. We were just absolutely printing money. We got to the point where there was like a dozen closers, there were setters involved, like everything was just awesome on this account. And guess what? Damn near the entire time, it was just straight direct response. It was a hot offer. It was a great account. Again, the ROAS just maintained the entire way up with fluctuations factored in. But again, we still scaled regardless through all that noise. And the most consistent thing was the client, okay? Filming new creatives, filming new VSLs, filming new confirmation page videos, filming new video assets for like trust assets and sales assets for the email sequences, filming videos for the sales staff to be able to send out to people. You know, there was just so much activity here, okay? And everything just went so well. Unfortunately for us, when a client typically gets bought out, we end up losing the deal. So it kind of sucked, you know? The guy ended up selling for $40 million. Respectfully to the client, we, through our rev share relationship with this guy, made so much money. He gave us a great testimonial on the account. We've actually since gotten into more deals in this same vertical as a result of helping this guy. This is actually one of our current Inner Circle members now, who's inside of our current Inner Circle group, where we do our twice a month one-on-one calls, weekly group calls, quarterly in-person masterminds right here at the Penthouse in good old Miami, Florida. And in addition to that, we have our group chat full of rich people trying to get richer. And our newest addition to the Inner Circle offer, which you can check out a link for in the description, is AI Jeremy, which we've officially introduced. We have a 2-phase rollout to it. Phase 1 is currently out, which has been unlimited messaging for the Inner Circle members. They've gotten the opportunity to, in the group chat and in a one-on-one setting right on Telegram, message AI Jeremy. And it's not something to undermine. It's not like just some hyped up bullshit that I'm trying to promote. It's trained on literally the last entire decade of my career's documented information and materials. Every DM I've ever sent, every voice note I've ever sent, every text message I've ever sent, every single one-on-one call I've ever done, every single consulting call, every single client call, every single thing that I've ever documented in a course material, which is just shy of 1,000 videos, every weekly group call, every podcast, every YouTube video just like this, every speaking gig I've ever done, every single mastermind talk, all of it. The entirety of my professional documented career, which is literally almost everything, has been trained exclusively inside of AI Jeremy. It is fucking phenomenal. We've gotten incredible feedback from the Inner Circle members, and we've also since rolled out the voice and video chat function, which gives Inner Circle members the ability to do phone calls with it. It also gives the Inner Circle members the ability to do a Zoom call with it. They've incorporated it in many creative ways above and beyond what I could consider possible. They've had it inside of their group calls that they do in their staff meetings, acting as a consultant. They've had it set up while they're filming ad videos to sit there and help them film in real time and to give them criticism after they film the ads. It's helped them build out webinars. It's helped them build out VSLs. It's gone through and done CRO, conversion rate optimization, with the people who have used it for that functionality. And obviously it's just been there as a mental coach as well throughout all of that. It's written ad ideas. It's scripted entire VSLs and webinars with these members. It's an incredible value add. We also include a variation of AI Jeremy inside of our Master Internet Marketing offer, which is a 7-week class full of 3 to 4 hours of dense information per class with homework libraries in between and a great community. Currently in the Master Internet Marketing group, AI Jeremy is rolled out for messages inside of the group chat with an unlimited function. There's not currently a one-on-one feature on Telegram where you can message it for Master Internet Marketing members. However, inside of the training library that all Master Internet Marketing members have access to, they have a pay per minute usage, extremely cheap by the way. It's like pennies per minute that you choose to do a voice call or a video call, and they have up to 2,000 one-on-one messages with it per month. We do that because it's not an ongoing offer, meaning, look, you pay me one time for lifetime access for the Master Internet Marketing group, so there is an eventual point where I actually become unprofitable if you exclusively exploit the fuck out of AI Jeremy. So we structure it a little differently, but again, we do a Costco model with the Master Internet Marketing members. We charge what we get charged plus 10%. And again, that's extremely cheap on a pay per message basis or on a pay per voice minute or a video minute phone call with it. Again, both links are in the descriptions for that. I'd encourage you to check it out. And you get members like this, to be clear, if you join into the Inner Circle. These are the people that you're amongst. The current average for the group is about $200,000 a month. We have 15 guys in there that do $1 million a month. It's an incredible value. Like I said, one-on-one calls, weekly group calls, quarterly masterminds, and the group chat full of rich people trying to get richer. Okay, back to my point. This is arguably one of my favorite deals that I've ever done, okay? Because even after the client gets to the point where they exit, okay, there's still a little transition period of time where the private equity company comes in and takes things over and we still get to run the account. And during that time, this is actually quite interesting for what occurs. We start to see that costs get driven up. What'll generally happen with almost any offer that's printing money, where there's other people out there who have no original thought at all and exclusively copy and paste from other people, they will copy your model. So that's what we started to see. With this specific offer, we started to see competitors, and those competitors substantially drove up the cost to get a qualified call. As I had mentioned throughout this specific video to you so far, our cost per qualified call ranged from about $100 to maybe $150 per call. It got to the point where our cost per qualified call was about $300 to $500, okay? Now, the reason I mentioned that this is one of my favorite deals, like I told you, this business owner was dialed the fuck in on a daily basis, multiple times a day they were communicating with. And this is one of the things that started to get brought up. Hey, cost per call is getting driven up. We would overcome ad fatigue. We'd still see a relatively higher cost per call. At best, we could get it into the high 200s towards the tail end of this almost 2 years of working on this deal before and right after they get bought out. What we started to do was what any smart business should do when their costs get driven up. There's two things, okay? When you initially start, you are mainly targeting an in-market demographic of customers, and you eventually have to go to the needs-convinced demographic. When you successfully get off the amount of spend that this particular client was getting off, and in some instances spend far more than that on other deals we've done, what you'll come to find is that you no longer get the benefit of being able to have the best costs and the best ROAS because you tap out of in-market customers, okay? In-market customers are always the most profitable people by far. When you get to the point where you have to start selling to a needs-convinced demographic, these people have a lower probability to convert, and they have to be, as described, convinced to purchase. In-market demographic customers, they know they need what you have. They know they want to buy, and they know they need it. So when they see the opportunity for you to help solve their problem, they just do it. They don't think twice about it. In this instance, when you pivot to the needs-convinced demographic, you have to understand that your ROAS is going to drop slightly, your costs are going to go up slightly, and you have to account for that. What this business chose to do is not only embrace that critical set of lessons, the change in messaging that's required on both the ads and the funnels. The sales team has to be updated on those strategies as well in order to consistently print money with one demographic over the other. But in addition to all of that, you have to offset the costs to jack up your ROAS again, which most people are unwilling to do. It's so surprising to me how many businesses out there consistently attempt to convince themselves, hey, I'm just gonna eat the costs and lower my ROAS instead of handing off the cost to my consumers. You know, just recently, Costco lowered their prices on some items up to 20 to 40%. Why? Because there has been a drop in the cost of their goods that they purchase by 20 to 40%. So they hand off the savings to the consumers. The opposite is also true when costs go up. Businesses don't just eat the difference in profitability and keep the margins fluctuating. They keep their margins and their profit the same by offloading the additional expenses to consumers. So this business went from about a $7,500 price all the way up to a little over a $10,000 price point on the front end of the offer at the very tail end of this whole thing, and still printed fucking money. Maintained ROAS. Ah, man, what a good deal, you know? Anyway, long story short, eventually, like I said, private equity company comes in, they get bought out. Private equity companies generally come in with a whole fleet of things that they think they can do better than you. They take it over, they gut the business on all the staff that are there. They keep the key operator, in this case, the business owner, and you know, they do whatever they're gonna do. I end up getting a call from this guy about a year after the exit. Okay, and when we're no longer on the account, and keep in mind, like me and this guy, we had no bad beef at all after this exit happens. It was a really like awesome thing. We both made a tremendous amount of money together. We got absolutely nothing but love for one another, to be clear. And I get a call from the guy about a year after he got the exit and all that, and he says, dude, these guys are fucking running this thing into the ground. Keep in mind, he's now a minority owner. So as tapped in as he was, as much as he was involved pushing the business forward, eventually there got a point where they just told him to shut the fuck up. You know, they just chose to run it, and they kind of like put the guy off to the side and used him more as a face of the business, more as like a marketing asset rather than like an operator, okay? And these guys, these private equity guys ran this fucking thing into the ground. They took the business from a little over $2 million a month at certain points all the way down to like mid couple hundred grand again. They drove the cost per call from that, like I said, like $200 to like $300, $400 range, all the way up to like $700 to $800. They didn't know what the fuck they were doing. It got to the point, and this is honestly fucking insane to me that like this level of money exists, you know? Like I've given you guys analogies before where it's like the fruits and vegetables analogy. You spend so little money on something that, you know, if you don't use it, you just eventually throw it away, but you're still willing to buy it again. Dude, these guys, they fucking drove this business into the ground, and it got to a point to them where like they just didn't feel confident about continuing to run the business anymore. So they sold the equity that they bought back to the business owner for like fucking pennies on the dollar, dude. It was one of those stories. It wasn't as good as like the Dave Portnoy story where he was able to buy Barstool Sports back for like $1, you know, after selling it for like 100 mil. But it was pretty fucking close to it. It was like tens of thousands of dollars to be able to buy all this equity back that was previously purchased for $40 million fucking dollars. So the guy gets back a hold of the business again, okay? And this is about a year and a half now from the exit. And again, dude, he calls me up. He's like, dude, I think we need to take a second stab at this thing, and we need to get you back in the trenches and like try to take this deal to the next level. And honestly, as much as I wanted to, we were fully maxed out on the amount of clients that we could help at the time, and we have a hard limit on the amount of deals that we can do. So honestly, as genuinely as I wanted to take on this account again, I knew how high touch it was, and I just knew that we couldn't take it over. So I put him into the Inner Circle program, and I decided to help him that way instead. He brought marketers into the account that we just help consult and train now, and you know, hold accountable from the outside looking in. But man, such a good deal, you know, truly one of my favorites. Anyway, I look forward to continuing to help you. I hope you learned some valuable lessons from this account and this deal. I sure did. I mean, there was so much to learn on this account. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Again, check out all the links in the description. There's plenty of great ways that we can work together and find opportunities to help you try to get richer. And yeah, go watch some of my other videos. Talk soon.